An explosion, aliens and an undercover operation that puts Joe in grave danger, to say nothing of villainous goings-on in the woods. It's all happening in Heartbeat this evening here at 8. Well, now on ITV4, some of motor racing's biggest names gather for the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Here we are again, happy as can be, all good pals and jolly good company.
ITV Granada local programming, sponsored by Motorpoint. You're in great company.
This week we're walking in little Scandinavia, but you won't need your passport because we're just across the Mersey.
This is actually the highest point on the Wirral Peninsula, and they say around here it's the light. You see, on three sides you've got water. Over there you've got the Dee estuary. Now at the moment the tide is starting to come in, but at low tide you've just got sand. Out there you've got the Irish Sea with the wind farms, and then round here that's the start of the Mersey. You can even see Liverpool, the Anglican Cathedral. In other words, from up here you're on top of the world.
It's a world that's changed out of all recognition. One day, about 1,000 years ago, when the sails of strange ships were seen on the western horizon, Professor Stephen Harding introduced me to these settlers from the sea.
So you're saying all these names are actually Viking names?
That's right. This, if you like, is the epicentre of Viking Wirral.
See, I'm amazed that after 1,000 years there's still evidence of the Vikings being here.
Oh, they're here in more ways than you think, Fred. But the place names is the obvious evidence. For example, BY. BY is the Old Norse element for a village. So when you see Pensby, Irby, where we are now, West Kirby,
right,
all these are Viking names with a BY.
So when did the Vikings, if you like, come here, and when did they leave?
Well, we don't think they left, actually. The major settlements in Wirral in the northwest would have been after 902 AD, when they were basically kicked out of Ireland. They lost a huge battle there, and they came over the Irish Sea.
Sulking.
Well, that's right, and they actually went to the Queen of the English asking for permission for land somewhere they could settle, and either she felt sorry for them or some deal was struck, and one of the places they were allowed to come was here.
Now let's destroy one huge Victorian myth. They did not wear helmets with horns, did they?
Absolutely not, I'm afraid. But if people like to think of Vikings like that, that's fine. It's basically, it was an invention of the 19th century. You know, the Wagner and the Victorians. This is where the horns came from.
Now, as you walk through here, that is impressive. There's no other word for it.
It certainly is, yeah.
But Thor's hammer. Why do they call it Thor's hammer?
Well, presumably because someone thought it looked like the head of Thor's hammer, and they believe this is where it ended up the last time that the Norse god lobbed it.
Can I hear a bit of Wagner playing in the background? I mean, it is impressive, isn't it, when you see it like this? And it is just a block of sandstone, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it might not even been here during Viking times. It could have been left by medieval quarrying, we don't know. But for locals, this is what they believe is the centre of Viking Wirral.
So how organised were the Vikings here, say, politically?
Very organised. They had their own parliament about a mile away at a place called Thingwall.
So how do you know that was a Viking parliament?
Thingwall means, in Old Norse, assembly fields, Thingvall. It's the same as Tynwald in the Isle of Man and Thingvathlir in Iceland.
That is incredible.
So they were substantial, they had their own leader, they had their own parliament. They were almost like an independent mini-state here on the Wirral.
You can imagine, actually, though, a Viking coming here with his lady friend and carving their names, or runes for Vikings, wasn't it?
This is what they did, not necessarily here. We don't have evidence of this happening here, but certainly in the Shetlands is evidence of basically graffiti, Viking graffiti.
Yeah. Thor loves.
Exactly, yeah. Usually there's a lady involved one way or another.
Yeah.
So, Fred, this is St Bridget's Church.
Not very Viking looking, is it, really?
Well, this isn't the original Viking church, of course, but it's believed it's on the site of the old Viking church. The oldest part of this church is something like, I think, 15th century, 14th, 15th century. It doesn't go back further than that. But there's something in the church which does go back further than that.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, go on. So what do you think of that?
Well, it's a piece of carved stone.
This is a hogback tombstone. So this once marked the grave of someone prominent.
Obviously, it's worn. What? How old is it? 1,000 years? That's something like that?
Yeah, we think it dates from about 1000 AD.
So when it was fresh, you know, a fresh burial, those carvings would have been absolutely pristine.
Indeed, and it would have been painted, probably.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
In yellows and blues and reds.
All the rock I've seen round here is red sandstone. That is not. So where's it come from?
No, this is not local sandstone. It is sandstone, but not from round here. And we believe it's come from North Wales. So obviously the man whose grave this commemorates, he was a wealthy man, because you wouldn't commission or have commissioned something like this unless you had some means behind you.
That is quite stunning. It really is.
But while the Vikings sail into history, we're walking on round the coast they knew so well, where they traded, where they settled. As we head for West Kirby, another Viking name by the way, we find the strange sight of our fellow travellers walking on water. But it's not as dodgy as it looks, it's actually a causeway.
West Kirby is famous for its marine lake. Now, when I was about 5 years old, we came here, I went paddling and got stung by jellyfish. I can tell you it hurt. Now, this is the largest marine lake in the whole of Europe. It's about 57 acres, and our favourite activity is to walk round the wall, which I'm doing at the moment. It's actually 1 mile, so that's very good for you, and a long route, I promise you, fantastic views, plus plenty of wildlife. The birds here are really fantastic. Up on the hill there, you see a sandstone tower with a ball on the top. It's called the Beacon, and it's not just decorative. It was built to help guide shipping into the River Mersey. Well, on a day like this, you have to smile. I mean, look at it, look at the clouds. Isn't it? It is, it is. We'll enjoy it.
There are miles of beaches on the Wirral coast. You'll rarely have them to yourself, but you can still enjoy the rhythm of the tides and the sound of seabirds on the breeze. It's just great.
In this part of the world, we see many outcrops of the red sandstone. It's called Bunter sandstone, and it was deposited in an ancient desert, just like the Sahara. And look at the way it's laid down. You can imagine here, this is the side of a dune, running along like this, layer on layer. Then the wind changes direction and shaves the top off the dune. So you get different layers here, and all the way up it varies. A bit of history frozen in time. But with this being on the coast, it will be eroded, and this desert sand will become beach sand. Today at low tide, there's a huge expanse of sand, but 300 years ago, it was totally different, because out there, when the tide went out, there was an area of water, like a lake. In fact, it was called the Hoy Lake, and they reckon that was a Viking word. How do we know it was there? Well, when William of Orange set sail for Ireland in 1689 to fight the Battle of the Boyne, he actually sailed from here. He brought 10,000 troops from Chester, and they boarded in the Hoy Lake 90 ships and sailed over the Irish Sea. And today, well, that lake has gone. But the town down there, of course, is still called Hoy Lake. At virtually every point on this route, if you look out to sea, you'll notice some islands. Now, the largest one is Hilborough Island. A little bit closer in, you've got one that's called Middle Eye, and then over there, you've got a little one which is called the Little Eye. But Hilborough is fascinating. It's now a bird sanctuary, and the only person that lives on it is the warden. There's evidence that monks lived there 1,000 years ago. Monks like to find remote places where they could meditate and be closer to their God. Then eventually it became a very important thing for the port of Liverpool, because it's one of the points where they had a telegraph station. It carried information all the way from Holyhead to Liverpool. How did they do it? Quite easy. They had a large pole and they had these like levers on the side. And depending on the position of the lever, it was actually sending a code. Now, if you owned a ship, they could send a message from Holyhead via all these stations back to Liverpool to say, well, your ship was on its way.
And we're on our way too. After the break, we're on our way to Staffordshire, where we're going to explore the rock formations and spectacular gorges of the Roaches. Come and explore them with us.